Welcome to Stories with Grandma Selene, where real-life African dramas unfold with the depth, emotion and truth our people carry in their hearts. Today we bring you the powerful story of Temi, the little girl the world thought would never survive. A tale of pain, resilience, hidden strength, and a destiny that refused to be buried under suffering. Travel with us from the quiet streets of Ibadan to the busy courts of Lagos, where a young girl who once sold oranges in the hot sun rises beyond every limitation placed on her. Her childhood was marked by rejection, hunger, and silent tears, yet her spirit burned brighter than every trial she faced. Her stepmother tried to break her, her father refused to see her, and life pushed her to the edge. But destiny waited, and when the right hands lifted her, everything changed. Sit back, relax, and enter a world where cruelty meets justice, where the forgotten become favored, and where a single moment of mercy can rewrite a whole future. This is the story of Temi. A story of survival. A story of purpose. A story that reminds us that no matter where you start, your ending can be glorious. Temi was 6, small-bodied, bright-eyed, and always humming quietly to herself. Everyone in the compound knew her as the peaceful child who never shouted, never fought, never demanded. She clung to her mother's wrapper every morning as her mother prepared for work. But inside the house, trouble brewed. Fights between her parents had become daily thunderstorms, shouting today, silence tomorrow, plates breaking the next. Temi hid behind the sofa whenever voices rose, whispering prayers with the innocence only a child could carry. Her mother was her only comfort, the warm hand that wiped her tears, the soft voice that said, "Temitope, you'll be great in this life." But the marriage had cracked beyond repair. One Saturday morning, Temi woke to her mother packing a small bag. The air smelled different, heavy, final. "Mummy, where are you going?" she asked, clutching her mother's blouse with trembling fingers. Her mother's eyes were red, swollen. "Temi, I will come back for you, I promise." But promises are sometimes weaker than pain. Her mother left that day, no goodbye kiss, no warm smile. The door closed gently, but the sound echoed inside Temi's heart like thunder. Her father stood still, refusing to look at his daughter. The house suddenly felt colder, darker, emptier, and for the first time in her life, Temi felt the sting of loneliness. She did not know things were about to get worse, much worse. The days after her mother's departure crawled slowly like a wounded lizard. Temi stopped playing. She stopped humming. She stopped talking unless someone asked her a direct question. Her father busied himself with work, and neighbors tried to comfort the little girl they always saw skipping around the compound. But nothing filled the hollow space her mother left behind. 6 months later, everything became official. The divorce papers came. Her father read them once, folded them neatly, and put them inside a brown envelope. He never spoke about them again. But the silence didn't last long. One hot afternoon, Temi returned from fetching water to find a strange woman sitting proudly in the living room. Her makeup was loud, her perfume sharp, and her smile tight like someone forcing themselves to appear friendly. Beside her sat 2 girls about Temi's age, both dressed in bright clothes and holding bottled soft drinks. "This is Madame Federer," her father said. "She is my wife now." Temi felt her heart drop. Wife already. The woman looked at her from head to toe, as if inspecting a housemaid. "So this is Temi," she said, stretching fake politeness. "You'll help me around the house, Ain." "Help?" Temi nodded nervously, not understanding the weight of that simple word. That night, Madame Federer and her daughters slept in the master bedroom. Temi slept alone in the small corner room. For the first time, she realized her mother was not coming back. And for the first time, she felt fear for the future. Life shifted quickly. Madame Federer wasted no time establishing her rule in the house. What began as small tasks, Temi sweep the living room, soon grew into endless chores, sweeping, cleaning, washing, cooking, ironing, carrying water, serving her daughters, and never being allowed to rest. Her father barely noticed. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he was too blinded by the comfort the new woman brought. Temi tried hard to be useful, thinking it might make her stepmother like her, but nothing she did was ever good enough. If she swept, they said it wasn't swept well. If she arranged the kitchen, they said she displaced things. If she washed plates, they claimed she didn't rinse properly. The stepsisters felt her silence was weakness, so they mocked her. Orphan child, they whispered. Your mummy ran away. Temi swallowed the insults like bitter pills. Her nights were filled with quiet tears. She missed her mother's warm hands, her father's old jokes, the laughter they used to share before everything fell apart. But the real suffering began when Madame Federer decided Temi was old enough to support the household. How old are you? The stepmother asked one morning. 6, Temi replied. That's enough, you will start helping outside. She had no idea what that meant. But she was about to find out. Temi woke up one morning to the sharp scent of oranges. Her stepmother had filled a large tray with fruit and placed it in front of her. Carry this, she ordered. You will go to the junction and sell. Don't come back until you've finished the whole tray. Temi stared at the tray. It was bigger than her head, heavier than her arms, and almost wider than her body. But school? Temi asked quietly. The slap came fast. Which school? Do you think money grows on trees? Earn your keep. Her father said nothing. He simply adjusted his shirt and left for work, pretending not to hear. That day, Temi walked barefoot under the burning sun, balancing the heavy tray on her small head. Her neck hurt. Her legs trembled. Her throat felt dry as sand. Oranges, sweet oranges, she shouted, using the same tone she heard other children use in the market. People bought from her mostly out of pity. Some asked, "Where are your parents?" But Temi was too scared to answer. By evening, she had sold almost all the oranges. On her way home, she was exhausted, hungry, and dizzy. That was when the near tragedy happened. A car zoomed out of a corner, and Temi, lost in thought, didn't see it coming. The brakes screeched. The driver, a grey-haired elderly man, jumped out, terrified. Small girl, are you blind? His wife rushed out too, inspecting her body. Where are your parents? Temi pointed weakly towards her street. The couple exchanged worried looks. Something about the way they stared told her they already knew. Something was wrong with her life. Temi returned home late that evening. Instead of concern, her stepmother screamed. Why are you just coming back? Where is the money? Temi put the small nylon of coins on the table. Madame Federer counted the money and hissed. This one is too small. Tomorrow you will not come back until you double this. Temi was too tired to respond. Dinner was prepared, but she wasn't given any. Her stepsisters ate loudly and deliberately, dropping crumbs on the floor and laughing at the tiny girl sitting silently in the corner. Her stomach growled. Her head pounded. Yet no one offered her food. For the next few weeks, hunger became her closest companion. Sometimes her stepmother gave her leftover bones. Sometimes nothing at all. Her father. He saw nothing. He believed everything his wife told him. Temi has eaten already. Temi is stubborn, leave her. Temi spilled the food herself. He believed lies instead of looking with his own eyes. Neighbors noticed her shrinking cheeks and trembling hands. One woman in the next compound quietly called her. Temi, come and take food. She sometimes offered Gary with sugar or small rice wrapped in nylon. Temi always whispered, thank you, Ma. But even kindness couldn't hide her suffering. Her body weakened. Her voice faded. Her smile disappeared. Every night she cried silently, wishing, hoping that her mother would appear in the doorway and take her home. But hope alone wasn't enough. Because the worst part of her suffering was still ahead. The next morning, Temi balanced the tray of oranges on her head again. Her tiny feet dragged across the dusty road as the sun began to rise. The weight on her head wasn't just the tray, it was the burden of being a child forced to survive like an adult. She stopped at her usual corner, calling out softly, sweet oranges, sweet oranges. Her voice lacked energy, but she tried. People passed by, some kind, some indifferent, some irritated that a child her age was selling instead of being in school. Around noon, as the heat intensified, she felt dizzy. Her lips cracked. Her throat burned with thirst. But she continued because she had no choice. Then it happened. An elderly woman, with a walking stick and a wrapper tied firmly around her chest, stopped in front of her. She looked at Temi, really looked. Her eyes softened immediately. "My child," she whispered. "Why are you not in school? Where are your parents?" The question hit Temi like a blow to her chest. No one had ever asked her that before. Nobody cared enough to. The tears she had been holding in for months burst free. She dropped the tray and began to cry, loud, broken, uncontrollably. The oranges rolled onto the ground, but the woman didn't care. "Who is doing this to you?" the old woman asked, placing a gentle hand on her back. Temi couldn't speak. She sobbed until she struggled to breathe. A few passers-by gathered around, shaking their heads. Some murmured, "This is wickedness." Some said, "They have turned this one into a slave." The elderly woman bought all the oranges just to help her. She pressed money into Temi's hand. "Go home," she said quietly. "But my child, this is not how life should be." Temi nodded weakly, wiping her tears. But deep inside her, something shifted. Someone saw her pain. Someone cared. For the first time, Temi wondered if help might exist somewhere out there. When Temi returned home unusually early, her stepmother was furious. "Why are you back?" Before Temi could answer, Madame Fadera grabbed her by the arm. She saw the money in Temi's hand and snatched it. "Who gave you this?" Temi sniffed. "A mama bought all the oranges." "What?" The woman's eyes lit up with greed. "You will go back tomorrow and stay there until you see her again. Do you hear me? And next time cry more, maybe she will buy the whole tray again." Temi stared at her stepmother in shock. Was her pain entertainment? Was her suffering a business strategy? Her father walked in at that moment, adjusting his belt, looking tired from work. Her stepmother quickly switched her tone. Temi refused to sell today. Oh, she came back early and wasted my oranges." Her father turned to Temi with a frown. "Why can't you behave? Do you want to stress this household?" Temi felt the pain sting deep inside her again. Even with her swollen eyes and trembling body, he believed the lies. "Daddy, I sold everything," she whispered. But he waved her off. "Go inside." That night, as she curled on her thin mat, she wondered why her father couldn't see through the lies. Why didn't he notice how thin she was becoming? Why didn't he see the bruises on her arms or the sadness on her face? Perhaps blindness was easier for him than facing the truth. Perhaps loving his new wife mattered more than loving his own daughter. And so Temi cried again, muffling her sobs into her pillow. A home that should have been her safe space had become her prison. Weeks passed and Temi's daily routine grew heavier. Every morning began with scrubbing floors before sunrise. Then washing plates. Then sweeping the compound. Then preparing her stepsisters' school uniforms. They went to school. She went to the street. When they returned, they dumped their dirty uniforms on the floor. "Temi, wash this one. Hurry up, I need it tomorrow." Their voices rang like bells of authority. Temi's small hands turned wrinkled and bruised from constantly washing clothes with harsh detergent. Her knuckles cracked. Soapy water strung her skin. One day, her eldest stepsister mocked her. "You think you're one of us, you're just the maid, Mummy said so." They laughed at her. They wore polished shoes while she walked barefoot. They carried lunch to school while she begged neighbors for leftover rice. Her stepmother made things worse. Temi fetch water, Temi wash plates, Temi sweep backyard, Temi iron clothes. Sometimes Temi didn't sleep until late at night. Her father rarely returned before midnight. And when he did, he never asked Temi how she was. One evening, after washing piles of clothes, her hands shaking, she whispered to herself, "I am tired." But no one heard her. No one cared. The suffering became her normal. And yet the worst was still coming. Because hunger has a way of breaking even the strongest spirit, and driving a child to do things no child should ever be forced to do. Temmie's body weakened gradually, but her spirit weakened faster. Every night, the hunger gnawed at her stomach like a wild animal. She could barely sleep. Her stepmother rationed food like punishment. If Temmie made a mistake, even a tiny one, there was no meal for her. "Let hunger teach you sense," her stepmother would say. The stepsisters purposely spilled food on the floor to frustrate her. Sometimes they hid bread under their pillows and ate secretly while Temmie watched. Neighbors noticed Temmie's shrinking frame. One woman whispered, "Is this not the same girl that used to run around the compound? See how thin she has become." Another said, "That woman is wicked, she will answer for this." But gossip alone didn't save Temmie. One night, after a particularly difficult day of selling oranges, Temmie returned home to find that her stepmother had cooked stew. As the aroma filled the house, her stomach tightened painfully. "Can I eat?" Temmie asked quietly. Her stepmother eyed her. "For what, did you finish all the chores?" "Yes, Ma." "Then go and sleep, there is no food for you here." Temmie felt tears gather. She walked to her small room and curled on her mat. Her stomach growled loudly, but she tried to ignore it. She cried silently, her face buried in her pillow so no one would hear. Her tears soaked the cloth. Hours passed. The house became silent. It was around midnight when the hunger became unbearable, so unbearable that it pushed Temmie toward a decision she wouldn't have believed she could make. A decision born from pure desperation. A decision born from survival. That night, sleep refused to come. Temmie's stomach twisted and squeezed painfully. She felt weak, dizzy, desperate. She walked to the kitchen, empty. The pot was locked as usual. The cupboard too. Then she heard a sound outside, the barking of the family dog, Bruno. Her stepmother always fed the dog late at night. She kept his food in a metal bowl placed inside the small cage at the back of the compound. Temmie stared at the cage for a long moment. Her stomach clenched again, harder this time. Tears filled her eyes. "I just want to live," she whispered. With trembling hands, Temmie quietly walked toward the cage. She checked the window, no one was watching. Bruno was asleep. She knelt beside the cage, tears rolling down her cheeks, and scooped a handful of the dog food into her palm. It smelled terrible. It looked worse. But Temmie swallowed it anyway. Her body shook with shame, but hunger pushed her to keep eating. She ate quickly, hoping nobody would see her. But someone did. A soft cough came from the balcony above. Temmie froze. Old Baba Ojo, the retired teacher in the next compound, was sitting on his balcony. He had seen everything, Temmie crawling into the dog cage, scooping dog food, crying as she ate. He stood slowly, heartbroken and enraged. "Ah, this is wickedness," he muttered. "This child will die if we keep quiet." He called 2 neighbors immediately. "Tomorrow morning, meeting in my sitting room. We must act, this can never continue." Temmie didn't know she had been seen. She wiped her tears, stood up slowly, and returned to her small room. For the first time in a long while, her stomach was not empty. But her heart had never felt heavier. Little did she know. Her rescue had just begun. Sleep didn't come easily for Temmie that night. She curled into a small ball, hugging her knees, ashamed of what she had done. Her stomach was no longer empty, but her heart felt like it had been cracked open. Meanwhile, Baba Ojo couldn't sleep either. He sat on his old wooden chair, replaying what he saw. A 6-year-old child, thin, fragile, trembling, forced to eat dog food inside a cage. "This is no longer suffering," he whispered to himself. "This is torture." The next morning, he waited near the gate until he saw Temmie sweeping the compound with her tired little hands. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her clothes were torn at the edges. "Temmie," he called softly. She looked up, startled like a frightened animal. "Good morning, sir," she whispered. "Come," he said gently. She hesitated, her gaze darting toward the house, afraid her stepmother might appear. "Don't be afraid, I won't keep you long." Temmie slowly approached him. He studied her face, sunken cheeks, dry lips, a wound on her wrist. "Did you eat?" he asked her. She shook her head quickly. Even though she had eaten dog food, she didn't consider it food. Baba Ojo sighed deeply. "My child, who did this to you?" Temi opened her mouth but no words came. Her throat tightened. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's okay," he said, touching her shoulder lightly. "You don't need to speak." He knew the truth already. The dog cage had spoken louder than any confession ever could. Before Temi walked away, he whispered, "Your suffering ends soon, my child, I promise you." Temi didn't understand what he meant. She walked away quietly, returning to her chores. But that promise, unspoken, unexpected, hung in the air like a spark waiting to start a fire. And by that evening, the fire would begin. The sun had barely risen when Baba Ojo called for an emergency meeting in his sitting room. People in the compound and the next joined: traders, mechanics, retirees, mothers, even the landlord. 10 adults gathered, faces serious, their expressions tight with concern. "What is happening?" Madam Ayati asked as she tied her wrapper firmly. Baba Ojo cleared his throat. "I saw something last night, something I will never forget." He described everything: how Temi crawled into the dog cage, how she ate from Bruno's bowl, how she cried while swallowing the food. Gasps filled the room. "Ah, God forbid. Chai, that woman is wicked. A whole human child. She will kill that girl one day." One man shook his head violently. "I've been suspecting this thing. That girl is always hungry, always coughing, always looking weak." Another woman added, "And the father, that one only sees what the wife wants him to see. He hears nothing, he knows nothing." Anger thickened the air. "This is abuse," someone said. "Not ordinary suffering, this is child slavery." Baba Ojo raised his hand to quiet them. "We must act today, before something terrible happens to that child." "Mr. Ojo, what do we do?" a young man asked. "We report to the police," he replied firmly. "And we involve child welfare, no more silence." Everyone agreed except one person. The landlord hesitated. "But if we inform police, there will be trouble in the compound." "Let trouble come," Madam Ayati snapped. "Better trouble than a child's death." The room erupted in agreement. They drafted a report, signed it, prepared to take it to the authorities first thing in the morning. Meanwhile, Temi swept the compound outside, unaware that a storm, this time a good one, was gathering in her favor. Her rescue was no longer a whisper. It had become a decision. The next morning started like any other for Temi. She woke up before everyone, swept the compound, fetched water, washed plates, and prepared her stepsister's uniforms. Her stepmother didn't notice the unusual quietness in the neighborhood. But by 10 a.m., a loud knock shattered the air. "Knock, knock, knock. Open this door, police." Temi froze. Her stepmother marched to the door, irritated. "Who is that? Why disturbing my house this early?" She opened the door and stepped back immediately. 2 uniformed police officers stood there with stern faces. Behind them, several neighbors gathered silently. "Yes, what is it?" Madam Fadera demanded. "Madam, we received a report about a child being abused in this household," one officer said. "Child abuse in my house, God forbid, who reported such nonsense?" "I did." The voice came from behind. Baba Ojo stepped forward, calm but firm. Temi's heart raced. She moved closer to see what was happening. "What are you saying, Baba?" her stepmother shouted. "This old man is lying." The officer raised a hand. "Madam, step aside, we need to speak with the child." Temi's stepmother blocked the entrance. "You can't enter my house." "Yes, we can," the second officer said. "And we will." They pushed past her gently but firmly. Inside, they found Temi standing in the corner, trembling. "Come here, my child," one officer said, bending slightly. Temi walked toward them slowly, eyes lowered. "Have you eaten today?" he asked. She shook her head. Did they tell you to go to school? She shook her head again. Where do you sleep? She pointed at her tiny room. The officers exchanged troubled looks. Then one of them asked the question that broke the entire case open. Did you eat dog food? The room went silent. Tears rolled down Temi's face as she nodded. Her stepmother's face drained of colour. The officers stood immediately. Madam, you are under investigation. That was the moment Temi knew. Someone had finally come for her. The police took statements from the neighbours, walked through the house, checked the dog cage and documented everything. Temi's father was called from work. He arrived confused, sweating and irritated. What is happening? Why are police in my house? When they explained the accusations, he shook his head. No, my wife will never do such a thing. Temi is lying. These neighbours hate my wife. The officer looked at him with disappointment. Sir, your daughter is severely malnourished. She is bruised, she is not in school, she is treated like a slave. And she ate dog food. What more evidence do you need? But Temi's father refused to accept it. My wife said Temi is stubborn. This child is always making trouble. Even after seeing the evidence, he defended his wife. Sir, the officer said sharply, your denial is also part of the problem. Finally, the case was forwarded to Child Welfare Services. One social worker said, we must locate her mother immediately. Calls were made. Documents were checked. Addresses traced. That evening, Temi sat in the back of the welfare van, hugging a blanket someone had given her. She felt numb, drained, terrified. Then the van stopped. A woman came running out of a gate, wrapper flying behind her, tears streaming down her face. Temitope, she cried. My baby, my child. It was her mother. Temi froze for a moment, disbelieving, then ran into her mother's open arms. They held each other tightly, sobbing. I'm sorry, her mother whispered again and again. I'm so sorry I left you behind, I should never have gone, forgive me. Temi clung to her as if afraid she would disappear. You're safe now, her mother promised. I won't let anyone hurt you ever again. And for the first time in years, Temi believed it. Temi moved in with her mother and grandparents the next day. The house was small, but it felt warm, full of love, laughter, and the smell of real food. Her grandmother hugged her repeatedly. See how small she is. God will punish whoever did this. Her grandfather shook his head sadly. A child should never suffer like this. Her mother prepared hot rice and stew. Temi ate slowly at first, afraid the food might be taken away. Eat, my baby, her mother urged gently. There is more. Temi's eyes filled with tears. Her bed was soft. Her pillow smelled clean. For the first time, she slept without fear. In the following weeks, her body began to heal. Her cheeks rounded a little. Her skin brightened. Her eyes regained their softness. But the emotional wounds took longer. Sometimes Temi woke from nightmares, dreams of dog cages, empty plates, and her stepmother's voice. Her mother would rush to her side, holding her until she calmed down. You don't have to be afraid anymore, she whispered. You're home. The social workers visited regularly. Her father tried calling, but the court now had restrictions. Temi didn't want to speak to him. The stepmother. She was facing heavy investigations. Slowly, Temi started finding joy again. She laughed with her grandparents. She played outside with other children. She held her mother's hand everywhere they went. But one thing was still missing. School. And soon that missing piece would return and change her life forever. Temi's arrival at her mother's family home was quiet but emotional. Mama Ada, her grandmother, hugged her tightly as if she were gathering broken pieces back into one whole child. Temi's mother, now calmer and more stable than years ago, held her and whispered, I'm here now, I won't leave you again. Temi slept for the first time in years without fear. No shouting. No orders. No slaps. Just peace. Within a week, her grandparents enrolled her in a nearby school. Although Temi had missed years of proper education, her determination surprised everyone. She studied late into the night, learned fast and topped her class by the end of the term. For the first time in her life, Temi felt seen, safe, loved. As Temi grew older, she began to understand everything she had endured. The hunger, the beating, the humiliation, the dog food. Every memory became fuel. One night during her first year in secondary school, she stood at her bedroom window and whispered, "I will never let any child suffer the way I did. I will fight for children like me." That night, a silent promise shaped her future. By SS3, she had become the girl everyone admired, brilliant, strong, disciplined. Her principal wrote recommendations for her university application, praising her leadership in the debate and human rights clubs. Temi applied to study law at the University of Lagos. She got in. The house erupted with joy. Her grandmother danced for nearly 10 minutes straight. At the university, Temi became unstoppable. She joined the Human Rights Clinic, volunteered in legal aid groups, and even participated in street outreach for abused children. People admired her confidence, unaware that it was born from pain. She excelled academically and graduated among the top in her class. A prestigious law firm in Victoria Island offered her a place immediately after her NYSC. Her mother and grandparents attended her induction into the Nigerian bar. Temi stood tall, wearing her wig and gown, and whispered, "Mama, I made it." Her mother cried openly. What Temi didn't know was that life was about to circle back in a way she never expected. One afternoon at her friend Karina's house, Temi arrived early for a meeting. The house help opened the door, and Temi stepped inside, but paused at loud arguments coming from the living room. Two policemen stood beside a young woman in handcuffs. She turned and Temi froze. It was Funk, her stepmother's first daughter. One of the children she used to wash clothes for. One of those who mocked her hunger. One who watched her suffer without pity. Karina rushed to Temi. "My cousin caught her stealing phones from her shop. She's begging for a lawyer, but we don't know who will help her." Temi kept her expression calm, but her heart was shaking, not in fear but in something colder. Funk looked at her again, eyes widening. "Temi, is that you?" Her voice wavered. "Please, I need help. You're a lawyer now, right? Please." Temi didn't answer. For the first time she looked small, weak, afraid. Karina pulled her aside. "Temi, should we help her? They say she might face real jail time." Temi inhaled deeply, her mind fighting old memories. The hunger, the cold nights, the dog cage, his laughter. She walked back to the police officers calmly. "Officer," she said, "what are the charges exactly?" "Multiple thefts," one officer replied. "We found stolen devices on her." Funk fell to her knees. "Temi, please, they'll finish me in jail. I was a child when all that happened back then. Please forgive me." Temi studied her for a long, silent moment. This was the girl who once threw stones at her while she washed clothes. Now begging for the hands she once pushed into dirt. Finally, she said, "I'll think about it, but understand this. Helping you is not the same as forgetting." Everyone in the room went silent. Temi walked out with steady steps. Her past had returned, but this time she held the power. Temi spent the night restless. Her grandmother sat beside her on the veranda and listened as she explained everything. "Mama, why should I help someone who watched me suffer?" Mama Ada placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "My daughter, forgiveness is not weakness, it is freedom. But remember, helping her does not erase what she did. You must choose what gives you peace." Temi looked at the moon. A part of her wanted to walk away and leave Deo to face the consequences of his actions. Another part wondered if saving him might finally close the chapter that haunted her childhood. By morning, she made a decision. Not for her. For herself. Temi walked into the police station wearing a crisp, professional suit. The environment was noisy, officers moving around, suspects being questioned, but Temi walked with the authority of someone who had earned her place. Funk sat in the corner, looking broken. When she saw her, he jumped up. "Temi, please." She motioned for her to sit. She spoke firmly, "Before I agree to represent you, I need the truth. All of it." Funk swallowed hard. She confessed to falling into the wrong crowd, losing her job, gambling and stealing to keep up with debts. "Temi, I'm not proud, my life, it's scattered. I'm not the same person I was as a child." Temi listened without interrupting. Then she said, "I will take your case, but after this, whatever path your life takes is up to you." Funk broke down crying. Not because of the police case, but because the girl he once treated like nothing was now her only hope. Court day arrived. Temi stood beside Funk before the magistrate, confident and composed. She argued that Funk was a first-time offender, that the stolen items were recovered, and that she had shown remorse. The prosecutor pushed back hard, emphasizing the seriousness of the crime. Funk kept his head bowed the entire time. Temi closed her submission with, "Your Honor, I stand here not only as his lawyer, but as someone who believes people can change when given a chance. I ask the court for leniency, not because she deserves it, but because society gains more by reforming a woman than by destroying her." The courtroom fell silent. After a tense moment, the magistrate ruled. Defendant is sentenced to 6 months community service, under supervision and mandatory counseling sessions. Funk sobbed from relief. Temi exhaled slowly. Justice, balanced with mercy. That evening, as Temi left the courthouse, a familiar voice called her name. She turned and saw her stepmother, Mama Tinu, standing beside the gate. Time had not softened the woman. She looked older, harsher, but her eyes still carried the same coldness Temi remembered from childhood. "So it's true," Mama Tinu said bitterly. "You're a lawyer now and you helped Funk. Why?" Temi stood tall. "For myself, so I can live without bitterness." Mama Tinu scoffed. "Your father was right, you always wanted to make us look bad." Temi's jaw tightened. "I didn't have to make you look bad, you did that yourself." For the first time, Mama Tinu's face faltered. "Do you hate me?" she asked quietly. Temi paused, then said, "No, I outgrew you." She walked away, leaving her stepmother speechless. 2 weeks later, Funk completed the first phase of her community service. She asked to see Temi. They met at a small cafe. She looked healthier, calmer, humbled. "Temi," she began, "I don't know how to repay you, you saved my life." Temi sipped her drink before answering. "Funk, what I did wasn't for you. It was for the little girl I used to be, the girl none of you defended." She lowered his eyes. "I remember I was cruel, we all were, I'm sorry." Temi nodded. "Thank you, that's all I needed to hear." Temi walked out of the cafe with a calm she had never felt before. Her past was behind her. Her future finally belonged to her. Temi returned to work with renewed energy. Her boss, Barrister Okonjo, noticed it immediately. "Temi," he said during a meeting, "your performance in that magistrate case was impressive. We need you on a new project." He handed her a folder. It was a major child rights case involving severe neglect in a rural community. Temi's breath caught. Children. Neglect. Pain. Everything she once lived through. "Sir," she said softly, "I'll take it." This wasn't just another case. It felt like destiny pulling her forward. Temi and her team traveled to a remote village where the complaint originated. On arrival, Temi saw malnourished children wandering, homes falling apart, and a broken school with no doors. Her heart clenched. An elderly woman approached her. "You are the lawyer, thank God. These children have suffered too long." Temi crouched to speak to a little girl holding a torn exercise book. "What's your name?" Temi asked. "It's Amina. Do you go to school?" Amina shook her head. "No teacher, no food." Temi placed a gentle hand on her cheek. It felt like looking at herself at age 6. She made a silent vow to fight for them with everything she had. Temi returned to Lagos and launched legal action against the local authorities responsible for the community's condition. Her firm released a press statement, and within days the story hit national news. Channels TV, Arise News, Twitter, Instagram. Everyone was talking. Who is this young lawyer fighting for abandoned children? Her courage is inspiring. Finally, someone cares. But with attention came opposition. A corrupt council chairman sent Temi a warning through her firm. Back off before things get messy. Barrister Okonjo called her into his office. Temi, this is dangerous, they're powerful people. Temi lifted her chin. Sir, children are dying, if I don't fight, who will? He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we fight. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, activists, government representatives. Temi stood fearlessly before the judge, presenting photo evidence, witness testimonies, and expert reports. At one point, the council chairman's lawyer tried to intimidate her. Are you sure you know what you're doing, young lady? He asked with a smirk. Temi smiled politely. With due respect, counsel, I know exactly what I'm doing, do you? The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Temi continued, her voice strong, her posture unshaken. She wasn't just fighting a case. She was fighting her childhood demons. The judge adjourned the matter for ruling, promising a swift decision. Temi left the courtroom feeling victorious. She had done her best. A week later, Temi attended the reading of the judgment. Her heart pounded, but she stood firm. The judge read, "The court finds the local authorities negligent. Immediate rehabilitation of the community is ordered. A child protection committee shall be established, and funds diverted shall be recovered." The courtroom erupted in applause. Temi closed her eyes, overwhelmed. She had done it. Later that evening, her grandmother called her. "My child," Mama Ada said, voice trembling with pride, "you have become what God destined you to be. You turned pain into purpose." Temi smiled, tears running down her cheeks. "I didn't win for myself, Mama. I won for every child who ever felt forgotten." As she hung up, Temi walked to her mirror and stared at her reflection. The scared little girl who once ate dog food was gone. A powerful woman stood in her place. Her journey wasn't over. But she had taken control of her story. A few days after the judgment, Temi received an unexpected message at the law firm's reception. "Someone is here to see you." She walked out and found her father standing there, looking smaller, older, and weighed down by guilt. His shoulders slumped when he saw her. "Temi, my daughter," he whispered. Temi froze. She hadn't seen him in years. He looked fragile, as though life had punished him silently for the choices he made. "I heard what you did," he said, tears filling his eyes. "You have become a great woman, better than I deserved." Temi didn't speak. The pain he caused ran deep. "I don't expect forgiveness," he murmured, "but I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry I wasn't a father." Temi's breath quivered. She had imagined this moment many times, but hearing the apology felt like closing a heavy door she had been carrying for years. She finally said, "I hope you find peace." Her father nodded, wiped his eyes, and slowly walked away. Temi didn't stop him. Their story had ended long ago. This was simply closure. News of Temi's successful child rights case spread across Nigeria. Non-profits, schools, and even international organizations began reaching out. She was invited to speak at a major conference in Abuja on child welfare. As she stepped onto the stage, hundreds of people stood and applauded. She felt the weight of her journey on her shoulders, but she also felt pride. "I stand here today," Temi began, "not as a hero but as a survivor. My life is proof that the child you neglect today may become the voice that demands justice tomorrow." The hall erupted again. Her story was no longer a secret wound, it was a weapon for change. Months later, Temi visited the village she had helped save. The transformation shocked her. Children in uniforms. Classrooms painted. A small clinic rebuilt. Women running small businesses. Laughter everywhere. Little Amina ran toward her, hugging her tightly. Teacher Temi, see my new book. Temi knelt, tears filling her eyes. Beautiful, keep learning, my darling. The community women sang and danced around her, calling her angel of justice. For the first time ever, Temi saw the world she always wished had existed for her. It didn't heal her past, but it softened it. Back in Lagos, Temi felt something growing inside her, not anger, not pain, but purpose. She invited her friends, colleagues, and supporters to a small meeting. I want to start an organization, she announced. One dedicated to protecting children from abuse, neglect, and abandonment, free legal services, shelters, counseling, everything I never had. Everyone clapped. Barrister Okonjo shook her hand with pride. This is your calling, Temi, we'll support you. And so, the Temi Child Advocacy Foundation was born. Within weeks, cases began coming in, children rescued, families supported, wrongdoers prosecuted. Temi had turned her personal scars into a national mission. One afternoon, after a long day at the foundation, Temi stood at her office window. The sun was setting, bathing the city in gold. She remembered the dog cage. The hunger. The insults. The cold nights. The tears. Then she remembered the courtroom victories. The children she saved. The mother who returned. The grandmother who loved her. The version of herself who refused to die. Her journey came full circle, not in revenge but in triumph. She whispered, I survived and I became more. The camera would fade on Temi's calm, determined face. A symbol of hope for every forgotten child. If you were watching this as a full movie, here's the closing narration. What do you think about Temi's journey? Should she have forgiven her father and step-siblings completely, or kept her distance? Comment your thoughts below, like the video, share it, and subscribe for more powerful Nigerian stories. If Temi's journey touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. There is someone out there right now. A child crying in a corner. A teenager questioning their worth. An adult quietly carrying wounds no one sees. Someone who has been betrayed, abandoned, or silenced. Someone who needs to know that pain is not the end of their story. Let Temi's life be a reminder. You can rise from anything. You can rebuild from nothing. You can turn scars into strength and suffering into purpose. Trust your voice. Defend your truth. Choose yourself even when the world chooses against you. Don't let cruelty define you. Let it refine you. If you believe every child deserves protection, every woman deserves dignity, every person deserves a chance to be heard. A child you neglect today may become the voice that brings justice tomorrow. Temi rose from abuse to become a lawyer, proof that destiny is stronger than oppression. Like, share, and comment. Your voice might be the spark that frees someone from a silent battle. Your share might be the message that saves a life. Let's make sure no Temi ever suffers in silence again. Let's use our stories to heal, and our voices to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves.